Welcome everyone to a very special Outside the Panels. As always, I am your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes, and we are so far outside the panels, it is beyond belief. On today, it's the Comic Crusaders VirtualCon II in memory of Lisa Einfalt. And here to join me in this conversation in a celebration, remembrance, and basically a discussion of the things that happened prior at that time, and give a little bit of insight into the thing that is leukemia and lymphoma. We have three lovely people who are going to kind of help us through this. First off, we have Josh Einfalt. Josh, how's it going?
It's going, Johnny. How are you?
I'm very well. And we're joined by Josh's sisters, the lovely Ashley Mayer. Ashley, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you for asking. And the equally lovely Melissa Mendez.
Good afternoon or good morning, afternoon.
Evening. It is.
Morning, good evening, and good night.
One of them.
It is dark out. So it's 1 o'clock.
Perfect.
So, it seems to me, with all the TV shows that I see a lot of, the Grey's Anatomies, the New Amsterdams and stuff like that, people get these massive serious diseases and illnesses, and 44 minutes later, bingo. That's not real life, though, is it?
Nope.
So, you guys lost someone massively important to you through leukemia and lymphoma. Josh, tell us about your mum, Lisa.
Being the established podcast host, I should keep my shit in check.
Yeah. Good.
She was mom.
Mom. Excellent. That one word, mom, there's so much. Ashley, tell me a little bit about your mom.
Oh gosh, I mean, like Josh said, she was mom. She was best friend. She was, cook. She helped us. She'd give you the shirt off her back.
Okay.
Cool. She would drop what she was doing, and she'd help anyone and everyone. She's just always a great smile.
Okay. Excellent.
I feel like everyone who knew her would always say, she had a great smile.
Cool. That's really nice. So, cook, Melissa, what was your favorite meal that your mum made?
Oh, she made a lot of really good things. Probably my favorite might have been tamales. She would get together with church friends and they would make tamales, canned salsa.
Oh God!
Yeah. I mean, there
Even
wasn't
her homemade
much.
Salsa was good.
Yeah, there wasn't much that went wrong. I remember teriyaki chicken being a very particular staple in the house. She had a very unique electric skillet that looked probably from the 50s, and it was probably a small pipe bomb for all we know.
It was a fire hazard.
It made the best teriyaki chicken ever. And,
Brilliant.
So she was creative. She was kind and giving. And funny. So it's that. Yeah,
she had a great
that wraps
sense of
her up.
humor.
Yeah. Does Josh share that same sense of humor?
Depends on the moment.
Let's be honest. We all know I'm the funniest of them all.
I will have to throw that there, as Melissa's the quick and the wittiest with her replies. I have to think about him. By the time I've got one, Melissa's already said 5.
All right. Okay. Cool.
Yep.
Excellent.
I just sit and I laugh.
Very good. It's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
So, talk me a little bit about the day you found out. Obviously, the diagnosis is a massive thing. How were you informed? Talk about your feelings. And what did you know about leukemia at that stage? Was it just a scary big word, or did you have some sort of knowledge? We'll pick on Ashley first, I think, for this one.
Well, I was actually living at home at this time, so with her. So the day that we found out, she was in school to be, I think, medical billing, if I remember right, and she had been just kind of off. I remember, and my dad had said, like, okay, I think you need to go to the doctor. So I remember I had worked just a little bit that morning, so she went to the doctor's, and she's like, well, we'll catch up and get lunch afterwards. And she left about 10:30, and it was 1:30, and I had just gotten off, and I'm like, that seemed like a really long appointment. And I was like, okay, well, you know, doctor's appointments, you know how they run. And
tell me
it was
about
2 o'clock. It was about 2 o'clock, and she called. She's like, hey, I'm in the ER. Dad's coming. And I was like, well, I'm heading straight to the emergency room. They put her in the emergency room, and luckily the hospital she was at was not very far. So I drove straight there. I sat with her in the ER until my dad got there. And then Dad's like, hey, you know what? Go home, take care of the dogs. We'll call you. And so I did. And I went to, at the time, my boyfriend, I went to his house and hung out with his family. And I had gotten a call like 6:30 or somewhere. And he's like, I need you to come to the hospital. And I was like, okay. He's like, but bring this for your mom. They're going to keep her overnight. And I said, okay. And so probably an hour later, got what she needed, got to the hospital, and going up the elevator, I was just like, okay, you know, it'll be fine. Everything's fine. Better her stay here and be watched and monitored. And I walked in, and seeing my dad the way he was, just slumped over in the corner on the chair by her bed, I knew something was wrong. And so he's like, I need you to come sit down. And I sat on my mom's bed, and she, not a tear in her eye. She kind of had a slight smile, and he's like, your mom has leukemia. And at first I was like, what? What? And he's like, mom has cancer. I don't remember a whole lot after that.
Okay.
And then he's like, I've called your siblings. I've called your sister. I don't really, like I said, kind of just is a blank. And so I was like, I gave my mom a hug, and I said, I need to go get some air. And he's like, yeah, that's fine. The bishop for my mom's church was coming later that night. And so I said, okay. So I went downstairs and went outside, and it just kind of hit. I fell to the floor. A lot of people looked at me who were outside, like, you okay? And so that's how I found out.
Okay. So, Melissa, did you find out after Ashley?
I did. I got a call later that evening. I knew she was at the doctor's. I knew that she hadn't been feeling well, and she was going to go get something checked on her leg, is what she had told me. And when I came, I think I probably came to the hospital 8:30, 9 o'clock. I think it was late. And I remember walking into the room and seeing them and sitting next to mom. And I mean, it was, I have cancer. And, you know, you're kind of like, okay, well, what kind? I had questions. And, you know, it was all very, we don't know much. This is what it is. This is kind of the next step. And I think at that time, the bishop of their ward at the time had arrived. And he advised me not to Google anything, which, I mean, I didn't listen to anyway. So I was like, oh, well, hold on. Let me look at something. Like,
well, he was a doctor, by the way.
Yeah. He's an
ear, nose, and throat.
He's an ear, nose, and throat doctor. But I remember him telling me not to Google, not to look. It's the fear of the unknown, the fear of what is about to happen. But I remember seeing my dad visibly upset. I remember my mom being upset, but it was all very, for me, very calming in a sense, reassuring that it's okay. We're gonna handle it. We're gonna take care of it. And I remember driving home that night, and in all honesty, I don't remember crying. Now, I mean, that was 10 and a half years ago. Right. And at the time, you know, I went home to my family, and my husband at the time, he's a chemist. He's a science-minded person. So we researched, we talked. I feel probably out of the three of us, I'm probably the most calm when it came to that type of news.
Okay, that's fine. That's great. I mean, people react to different news in different ways. You know, some people are very emotional from the outset. Some people need to take that breath and take a moment to reflect and digest. Some people can just kind of compartmentalize. There's no set way that anyone can say, right, you should feel this or you should feel that. You know, you feel what you feel, and that's as genuine as it gets. Right?
Yeah.
So that's absolutely totally fine. Josh, I know your day job, you work in medical circles.
Mm-hmm.
So when you got the news, how did, with your expertise from what you do on a day-to-day basis, how did you've got like other things? You've obviously it's your mum and your family, but you've got that analytical side that kind of thinks, well, I spoke to a person who had this last time, and so on and so forth. How did those two factions, I guess, sort of coalesce?
So I was not working in the medical field at the time. I was actually, funny enough, working in the food industry. But what made my experience different, I was living with my grandparents, who were my mom's parents at the time. And I was actually at a church activity that night, and my phone started blowing up, coincidentally enough, during the closing prayer. So my dad's calling, Melissa and Ashley were all calling me, and I'm like, okay, I'll answer, I'll call back when this is done. So I call my dad, and he says, where are you? And I said, well, I'm at a church activity. He said, okay, I need you to go home to your grandparents. Your mom has leukemia. And I dropped because I'd stepped out into the garage at the house that I was at. And it was just one of those moments that if you were to watch it in a movie, there's no music, no sound. It's just everything was just kind of a blur. I then have to drive 20 minutes to go home to be with my grandparents to have that talk with them. And that was an interesting night at that house. My grandpa didn't say anything.
Take your time, man.
Grandpa said it would be okay.
Isn't that what granddads and grandmas are supposed to say, though?
Yeah.
Yeah. They're the rules. They're the rules.
Yeah, it was just between the call and having the conversation with them was what I remember the most. And then we drove down the next day to the hospital. And I remember Dad was very uneasy. Mom, not so much. Mom was taking it like a boss. Cool. Her biggest thing was, you know what? It is what it is. There's nothing I can do about it, but we have to deal with it. Looking back on it now, knowing what I know of the medical field, to have the oncologist go from the diagnosis to we need to start chemo right now. That's knowing what I know now, that states the level of severity of the leukemia.
Right.
And I remember Mom telling me that, a couple days before, she was having what she described a Charlie horse from hell in her leg. And
she would wake up at night, like middle of the night, screaming. I'd hear it from my room. And my dad would try to massage it out, and we were kind of confused on why.
So for the doctor to say, we need to start this now. Oncologists don't do that unless they understand the severity of it. And that's where she was at, to the point that even afterwards, I think it was mom who told me that had she not gone in, I can't remember if it was mom or dad, but they had said that had she not gone in, she would have been dead 2 days later.
Right.
They were outside her room that night. I remember like literally holding their stuff ready to start chemo. And she's like, I need to tell my family first. So like after I think Melissa and I left, I think, they were just on it.
I believe I was there when they gave her first dose. Because it came in pill form. The first round, it was done in pill. And then once they put in the stent, then it's the continuous.
So
I remember her saying, though, don't pity me. Don't. Just be there for me.
Yeah. So she's shown that resilience, that fight from the get-go.
I don't know how this woman did it.
It was that way every day.
Well, just to lighten the mood a little bit, she put up with you three, so
Us three at 5 a.m. for swim
I was the easy child. I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't think any of us are easy. No, she through this whole thing. I remember because I worked at Cost Cutters in Broomfield, so I was less than 10 minutes away. I might have had a really bad day, and I can't. I'd go and visit her every day, and I'd walk in. And here's this woman, got all this stuff attached to her. And she's like, well, how was your day? And I'm like, I'm not going to bitch to you about my bad day. And she's like, no. She's like, we're going to live life as normal.
Yeah.
And I mean, I remember she's like, well, I want you to shave my head. And I was like, you want me to do what?
Yeah.
Like, what? She's like, I don't want to wake up with hair in my hand. And I'm like, all right. And I remember I bought all my stuff. And my dad's like, ooh, can I do the first buzz? And I let him do it.
Cool. Excellent.
And she went, we called it the number 2 club, because my dad was a number 2 all over. So she joined in, and my aunt made just a cool scrapbook and saying different activities here at, what was it? Hotel, whatever the hospital name was. Yeah. And she took pictures of my mom pretending to pole dance on my mom's little pole with her chemo and coloring books, and just people from the ward were so generous to help. And
so let me ask you, because obviously when you say the word leukemia, it's a huge thing. It's a huge word. It comes with a massive amount of connotations. All of them, pretty dire. Listening to you tell the events as they unfold. When they say the word chemo, we all know what chemo is. Melissa, when you hear that word chemo, kind of, where was your head when you kind of because leukemia is kind of that's something that other people get.
Yeah,
like other people get, not mom, but when someone says chemo, you're like, oh my god, that's radiation. Everybody knows what that is. So
when your first thought, at least it was for me, for chemo was radiation of, well, how are you going to radiate your blood? Like, how does that work? Are they going to filter it out? Are they going to put new? So I had a lot of questions of what type are they going to use? Not that I knew what it was, but I wanted to know. What was her life going to be like over the next couple of weeks as she began to really truly feel the effects of chemo. I mean, it is breaking down everything in part, and you were so open to other infections, and I mean, you feel like garbage, and we didn't know how she was going to react to it. So the first couple of days, you knew that, okay, I'm taking chemo, and everything seemed fine. It seemed like it was no big. It sounds weird to say, but it was no big deal because she was the same person. But it was after that first week where the chemo really starts to set in, and the nausea, the vomiting, the bloody noses. The bloody noses were something no one could ever prepare you for. And to see her so tired. I mean, chemo, how somebody can be so optimistic and remain upbeat when they feel like their insides are falling out of them.
Mhm.
I mean, that's a special human being.
Great, totally. You raised an interesting question there. So, Josh, I'll throw this one to you, I guess.
Sure.
So, going through chemo, there's obviously Melissa's talked about the reactions and the impacts on your mum.
Mm.
You know, the physical elements and the nosebleeds, the tiredness. Ashley mentioned about the hair, which is, as soon as someone says chemo, that's the first thing people always think about.
Yep.
What about the impacts on you guys? Because this is your rock. This is your, this is your best friend. This is, the greatest cook in the world. And going through that, how does that impact you guys?
It was one of those, at least for me, it was, okay, she's going through another round. The next few days after the round is done is going to be rough. I remember the hospital she was at in downtown Denver, they had a lot of precautions. You thought COVID precautions were strict. Going into that room was even more. And if you had a sniffle, they would not let you in because obviously the chemo's breaking everything down. And so it was one of those being very conscious about your own health, because the last thing I want to do is put her in a situation of if I go in with anything, that could be her undoing.
Yeah.
And so that in itself, at least for me, made it a little more scary.
Yeah.
I mean, chemo is what it is. It's chemo. It's treatment. It's a nasty treatment, but it's taking care of something as cruel as cancer, as cruel as leukemia is. It wasn't something that we would make jokes about. I mean, just not any sort of joke regarding chemo just would never leave our lips ever. And if it ever did, I guarantee one of us would get punched if we ever made a joke about that.
Who was the puncher? Melissa, I bet you. I bet it's Melissa. Melissa's got like a puncher. Look at those guns. Go on. All right then. So
act first, ask questions later.
Okay. So
there's my childhood right there.
Yeah.
Right. So here's a question.
Listen, why'd you punch your sister in the face? Felt good at the time.
Yeah. For which sister? Right. So question for all of you then. Oh my God. So here's a question for you all then. Okay, so you talk about the resilience of your mum. You talk about her going through this horrendous procedure. Did you feel that you had to be strong for her as she was being strong for you? And if so, how did you do that? How did you manage that? Ashley? We'll start with Ashley on that one, I think.
I mean, it was just, I guess just showing up for her, being there every day as best you could. And she did ask, be strong for Dad. This was his high school sweetheart. I lived at home, so, she's like, take care of Dad. Make sure Dad's eating. Make sure he's showering. I mean, this man would get up. Oh God, he'd get up early. I mean, he's just very strong through this. He'd get up early, go see her, go to work. And I remember he told his boss, like, hey, if my wife calls, I'm gone. Keep me, fire me, whatever. So he would, I don't know, I'm sure he did probably go have lunch with her. And then, he'd spend all night with her and then come home, sleep for a little bit. I mean, I remember one time she was having a rough time and I was up just because I was a late person and it was probably like 2 or 3 in the morning. And I looked down at my phone and I saw my mom was calling and I'm like, oh my God. And she's like, hey, where's your dad? And I was like, sleeping. And he must have just been tired. He was out. He didn't hear his phone. She's like, can you go wake him? I'm having a rough night. can he come down? And so I went and woke him, and he got dressed and just buzzed right down there, like, as if, even though he had to get up in 4 hours to go to work, he didn't care. So she just really wanted us, to be strong for Dad, because he was, this was his life partner. This was, the mother of his kids. So,
Okay, cool. Thank you for that. So, Melissa, I think we alluded to a little bit, like some of the fun things that you kind of do to like the haircut club and the coloring books and stuff. How important is it to try and find some, not positivity is the wrong word, but to find humor or to find joy, that's the word I'm looking for, just to get some sort of normalcy in that situation? How important is it? Because I mean, it's hard enough.
It's everything to create your life changes. It evolves. You have to create a sense of normalcy amongst the chaos. So you've got to find humor in the little things, humor in farting, right? I mean, farting is funny anyways, but I just, you have to find humor when you're in this situation. You find the funny in everything. Because it can be a slippery slope downward. And if she's going to remain healthy and strong, not only physically, she has to be mentally healthy and strong. So you've got to find humor, you've got to find joy. And we have a very strong family. Aunt came down, spent lots of time, grandparents. And so she was constantly surrounded by people who would not let her down, who would not allow her to get deep into a hole. Yes, we could be there for her when she wasn't feeling good and let her process this, but you have to, you had to bring joy. And I mean, we found it in everything. The TV, the weather outside, and my daughter at the time was 4.5. Things that she did. So I mean, you got to find the humor, or else it just makes it harder. And I mean, our life in general was very surrounded by humor.
Okay, so because it obviously affects your mum, because your mum's going through the treatment. Affects your dad because your dad's, as you said, Ashley, life partner. He's there for her. How were you three there for each other? How did you manage to? Because I mean, you all have your own feelings. You all have your own way of dealing with different things, equally as valid as each other. How did you kind of help each other through and kind of just act as a unit? Josh, we'll start with you on that one.
From what I remember, we kind of just did our own thing, because if we were in our own elements, it allowed us to stay grounded. It's like we all had kind of our unspoken roles, if you will, where Melissa had the grandkids. I wasn't married at the time. Ashley wasn't married at the time. So Melissa has the grandkids.
Grandkid. No, you had William.
No, William wasn't born yet. Okay. It was just Kenzie. But she's got the grandbaby. So making sure that mom is able to see Mackenzie when she needs that cheer up. Ashley's there to keep dad grounded. Make sure the dogs are taken care of as well.
Thumper was her baby, so I'm gonna say Thumper.
Between Thumper and Buddy, and then
I didn't have Buddy.
Pooh Bear.
Pooh Bear. We had Pooh Bear.
Whoa! Did you have dogs or cartoon characters? Thumper, Pooh Bear. Was there a piglet in there?
Sterling.
My dad did like cats.
Sterling.
Yeah.
We're a dog family.
Yes.
Yeah. Melissa has the cat. So. We don't.
I have one of each, so I'm fine.
We're not judging. We're judging.
Smoking's
adorable.
But then my role was obviously making sure my grandparents are okay, because this is their daughter.
Yeah,
Their only daughter.
I was grateful Josh was living with them, because Josh drove them down, because I don't think Grandpa he should have been driving.
I mean,
so
Grandpa
Josh was a good driver.
Yeah, Grandpa could have driven down, but it was just better for me to be able to drive down, to drive them down. So that was what I remember most, was we have our individual roles. Do this for Mom. Let's not bicker. Let's not start a whole bunch of bullshit, because one, that'll piss Dad off. Which then
remember what he used to say? If we don't start behaving, he's gonna thump our heads together.
Oh yeah, or he not? Yeah, he'd thump our heads.
That's a parent rule book. That's a
solid one.
If you don't behave, I'll take one of the other to smash the other with.
Yeah, I'm gonna knock your head like
thump your heads together.
Yeah. Hey, I'm a parent. I've used that line.
Or there was the hope you can run faster scared than I can mad. This was the one time you did not.
I like that one.
Limit.
I like that one. I'm going to use that one. Thanks.
There you go.
That put the fear into God, and you're like, I'm backing down.
Yeah. So it was just keep things calm, because we were all on edge.
Okay. We developed a new normal. We developed a new normal. We did get to plan a benefit for her together. I mean, Melissa did take the head on that one, which, I mean, she did an amazing job. We did a cool spaghetti dinner. I mean, such a turnout. We got to all three, contribute in our own way, but that was really fun to be able to do that. We did light the night walk with Mom. And again, Melissa helped. She does 99.99, actually 100% of that. So, we got to do that together. That was doing light the night walk with Mom was nice.
There was also the parade that we did for Broomfield Days. And I think it was, if I remember right, it was in conjunction with Light the Night, and Mom ended up walking away with the trophy from that.
A big trophy.
Go Mom.
Wish I could remember what the category was.
I think it was something most inspirational or something.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Something along that line. I remember it was a cold, dreary day that day. It was a cold day, but she put on her beanie that she loved, her maroon beanie, and she had the coolest hats. People made her the coolest hats, especially from the church. So many people in our church at the time were super helpful.
Cool. You guys, you've mentioned church a couple of times during this conversation. I get that religion's important to you. How did this situation then test your faith? Because people go through different stages of grief. One of them being anger, and it's normally anger aimed at things that are uncontrollable because you've got nowhere else to go. How was your faith tested? How did you resolve that sort of kind of, I guess, those feelings that you can't tell anybody, because sometimes, you know what, you don't want to let people know that you're angry. You don't want to let people know that you feel bad. You don't, because you've got to be strong. You've got to put on the happy face for everybody. How did your religion and your faith help you with that? Melissa? We'll go with Melissa.
You know what? At that point in my life, I had already stepped away from the church. I was not an active participant, I guess would be the best way to put it. I did not have anger at the beginning stages. My anger came after her passing. That's where my anger comes from, I guess. People in the church, they were incredibly supportive. They were there for her. They were there for us as a family. A lot of these people were, our aunts and uncles, quote unquote, people that we grew up with. So, they allowed us to be raw with them. They allowed us to dig deep into the uncomfortableness that this was, without judgment, without fear. So I did not lean into religion per se. I leaned into the people to help me. Mom led, she leaned into all of that. She needed the faith. She felt like the faith was going to get her through. Mm-hmm. She was very adamant that, this is for a reason. I'll get through this because he's helping me. I did not feel that way. I felt she was going to get through it because she's tough as birds. She's tough as nails, I guess is the phrase.
Yeah, I knew what you meant.
Yeah, my random weird analogies.
It wasn't lost in translation. It's fine.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, some birds. Anyways,
Big bird.
He's pretty. I mean, look at how old he is. So for me, the anger and the frustration came after her passing.
Okay. Josh, how about yourself? I know we don't normally talk a lot about religion.
I know this is something I don't talk about hardly ever. At the time, I think I was probably the one that was the most church going.
Yeah. I wasn't active either.
Yeah, so I was the one that was really relying on. I relied on my faith to keep my shit together.
Okay.
But at the same time, I was also relying on the people, and their strength. But the one thing that I found interesting, and to this day, I still despise the question, is how are you doing? Are you okay?
Man,
I'm not
question.
Okay.
That was my last question. You've gone and spoiled it now. Cheers, mate.
Well, it was a perfect segue. But in those moments, it was like when I was asked those, I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to open up. I just wanted to keep moving forward. She has cancer. It is what it is. Ashley alluded to it earlier, where Mom didn't want the pity party. She just wanted people to just keep moving forward, keep going on. And if you did that, that gave her the strength to keep going on each and every day. I remember her saying, my bad days are just that much closer to my good days. Okay. And it's things like that have stuck with me. Was my faith tested? Absolutely. I won't lie.
Well, I've got a really big question then for you then.
Okay.
I'm not. I'll put my cards on the table. I'm not overly religious, and if anyone is super religious, that's totally cool with me. If people aren't religious, that's totally cool with me. I am. Josh, you know me. I'm the most laid back person. Yeah.
Yep.
Here's a question then. I get that a couple weren't practicing. Josh, you into your religion. Mm-hmm. Do you feel let down by your faith and by, I guess, God?
No, because at the end of the day, what I learned from the 2 years, the 2 additional years that we got to have with her, I grew more during those 2 years, and then moving forward. I always look back on those 2 years. What parts of that time did I really grow? What parts of that did I not make the best choices? I mean, there's a whole myriad of things I could go through, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. I can't change it. All I can do is move forward.
Ashley, Melissa, same sort of question yourself. Do you feel kind of let down by a higher power, regardless of if you were kind of practicing or at the time, or did you take a more, I want to say realistic or more realism approach, I suppose, rather than faith bound?
I'm probably still a little bit sour, I guess might be the word. One of the biggest things that was said to me at her funeral was, there's a plan. there's a plan that he needed her more. I'll probably spoon out the eyes of the next person that tells me that. And the reason being is I got, I don't know, 20, I can't do math, 27 years, I think.
I was 23.
And so I got 27 years with her. My kids, my daughter got 5. My son got 9 months, 10 months. Josh, Lucas got 6. Ashley Zeralius got nothing. My Calvin got nothing. So tell me what that plan is, because I'm dying to know.
Okay.
This year's been the hardest actually for me, becoming a mom, because she was supposed to be there.
Yeah.
All 3 of us I got married. Josh and Melissa got remarried. She didn't get to attend any of those. And so I know for Josh not being able to dance with his mom again was hard. Luckily, I got to go to that wedding. And then Melissa, both of us having kids. My husband he missed the chance to miss my mom, because it's a long story, but we were friends at the time. He was going to come visit my mom. But something blocked it where he never got to meet her. And so this year has been the absolute hardest, because I'll be struggling as a mom and I don't know what to do. Yeah. I mean, I go to Melissa and I'm like, I don't know what to do. Where it should be mom. I mean, Melissa's just, she's mirror image of our mom. Like, she has the craft. She's so crafty. She looks like mom. So, I mean, I was so mad at God, and I'm, like Mo said, people say there's a plan, or I broke up friendships because people said, I know what you're going through. And I snapped at someone at the funeral, like, I'm sorry, did you just bury your mom? No, she's right there. So pissed off. And I lost that friendship.
That's an honest reaction. Absolutely.
I had cookies in my hand because this was after her service. I was like, I had like cookies, like that many. And I was just walking, and I'm kind of was in the mode of like, don't F with me right now.
Yeah.
And they're like, I know what you're going through. And I'm like, I'm sorry, did you just bury your mom? No, she's over there. Piss off. And I walked away. And I just remember my high school swim coach. She was there. She just kind of looked. She's like, that was a good answer. But I mean, every day, because I have some of her craft stuff, and I know Josh and Melissa do, I look at that and just, it's not fair. Yeah. She had so much life to give. She had so many things to give in this world. And it's just, it's not, especially no mother should bury their child. And so the fact that she died the day after my grandma's birthday, I was pissed. I'm like, why would you do that to my grandma? Why would you take her the day after her birthday?
Yeah, but I remember laying there, and I remember calling Josh on Grandma's birthday, and I said, it's now or never, because it ain't gonna be long. And sitting there and telling Mom, just wait until midnight. Like 12:02 would be perfect. Like, if you're gonna go at 12:02. Do not die on Grandma's birthday. I never in my life would I have imagined cheering someone to the other side.
Yeah.
She got to the point where she wasn't mom. She was just like a vessel.
And then that kind of leads up to the next kind of question.
Segue.
Well done, thank you. And
you're welcome.
Thank you, guys. Okay, so you've got to think about the leukemia led to the lymphoma, which eventually she wasn't able to recover from.
She had open heart surgery to remove fluid around her heart. I was with my dad in the hospital. The sac around her heart had filled with fluid, and so her heart was not able to pump. So they had to go in and drain it, and they found lymphoma behind her heart. So they were like, we can remove it, but, I remember her looking at me, looking at my dad, and said, I'm not dying here. I'm going home. And I remember Melissa flew in the next day. So I think she was living in Georgia at that point. And I remember Melissa flew in.
I had just returned. Yeah, I had just returned to Georgia. I spent the summer in Colorado with the 2 kids, so that we were scheduled to come out for a visit, and I remember thinking, I need to stay here. I need to stay here and be with them and be with my kids, and we need to be here. So me and my 2 kids bunked up in the house, and I stayed through June, through July. I had gotten back to Georgia, and I think maybe 2 weeks later, Dad called and said, he was like, that's it. She's coming home. And I was like, all right, I'll buy my tickets. And I bought one ways. I didn't even buy the return flight. I wasn't, you don't know how long that process is going to be.
Stayed like 2 weeks after the funeral and helped me and Dad get things back to normal.
I came. I was there when they brought her home in the ambulance. They got her set up in the living room, and then at that point, you schedule people to come see her, and I have.
Do you remember?
And I hope to never do it again. But I hope to never schedule visits to have somebody come and say goodbye to somebody.
She posted on Facebook, "I'm home. Come say goodbye. Hopefully, not too many tears." It was a very. If you had no idea what was going on, you were like, "What?" But if you knew what had been going on with our life, we had people like, what do you guys need? We had people bringing us food. Melissa slept many nights in that chair by her side, helping her. Our hospice nurses were great. I remember the night she passed, I fell asleep, and I remember Dad came in. It was 2:04 when she passed, because Dad was up with her. And I remember Dad telling me, he's like, I remember he told me, "You can go. I'm okay. You can go." And he said he went down the hall to get something from the bedroom. And when he was walking back up the hallway,
he went to get
said her patriarchal blessing.
Yeah.
And the nurse came around the corner and said, "She's gone." And I believe that she waited for him to walk away to take her last breath, because I don't think she wanted him to be there for that.
So, thinking about, Ashley, you mentioned that towards the end, your mum was a vessel. The feelings that you have when someone passes, the confusion, the conflicted. Seeing your mum in so much pain and so much discomfort. Was there a sense of relief? Was there a sense of guilt from you all? We'll start with Josh. Ashley.
I'm sorry. I live with the guilt that there were times I could have gone and had lunch with her, and I chose something else. Because at the time when this was happening, she was fine, she was okay, she was home, living normal life. And I'd be like, "Oh, hey, I'm actually out doing this right now, but I'll get dinner with you." And looking back, I'm like, no, I should have dropped what I was doing with those people, and I should have spent time with her. So I do live with that guilt. But
okay, that's not a answer, Josh. Was there a sense of relief that your mum was no longer in pain?
Yeah. When I look back on all of that, she still got to live her life. She still got to do things that she wanted to do. I make the comment now that I can no longer listen to Mariah Carey's "Hero" without bawling, because that's the song we danced to at my first wedding. At my first wedding, she made the joke, you know what, guys, I think I'm gonna let my hair down, and she took off her wig. Stuff like that. It was her constant optimism given everything going on. That's what really kind of helped me. I mean, there was a post on Facebook that she had made. Funny enough, it was on April 14th, 2011. And I don't know if Melissa and Ashley remember this. And she said, I have a new statement for the doctors when they ask, are you allergic to anything?
Yeah.
Yes. Hospitals and housework. This is the type of humor that she was all about. And if it wasn't for that, I would have lost it. Her final words to me was, I love you and I'm proud of you. And I'll see you soon.
Excellent. Melissa, how about yourself? That your mum, a sense of relief, a sense of she's at peace, or a sense of huge loss?
It was definitely a bit of a release, release, kind of the same. To see what she went through with radiation, chemotherapy, the bone marrow transplant.
Yeah, she had a bone marrow transplant on April 1st.
And the reaction that can cause, her mouth was swollen shut. And when Josh talks about how closed that hospital was, if you were under the age of 16, you could not even get on the elevator to go to that floor. Mm-hmm. So all of what she went through, the stack of medical bills, right? We're talking
binders. We have binders.
Binders. The pain, all of it. Yes, it was a relief. And I was relieved for her, that she didn't have to go through that anymore. She was, they talk about in the church, your family is greeting you on the other side of the veil. And she, in the final days, would talk about people as if they were standing there, like she could see them.
Yeah, she
so
saw
I knew she was
that had been dead for years.
Great. She kept saying, I can see Grandma Rose. I can see Grandma Rose. And so we knew, I knew that while my faith may not have got me there, her faith was getting her there. And she believed in it. So I had to believe it. And I knew she's not alone. And, even today, our grandfather, her father is there with her. She is not alone. And that's the piece that of the puzzle that brings peace to it all. It is. It's a bit of a, it's a relief for my dad too. Mm-hmm. I mean, what he had to go through.
So Josh is going to hate me for this question.
Where'd your hair go?
Yes. We've had that conversation. It went on his chin, didn't it? I can see that.
Yeah, it fell down.
Yeah. It's changed time zones.
It just went.
Thanks, Johnny.
Hemispheres.
Yeah. Even worse. All right, so you've all had this massive loss. How are you with each other now? Has a sense of loss brought you together? I know you've all got very separate lives. Do you feel going through that has made you closer? Do you see different things in each other now than you did before? Maybe aspects of your mum. You mentioned Melissa's the crafty one, and she looks like your mum, and that's not just one aspect of your mum. You all share aspects. Mm-hmm. So from that journey, how's that affected your relationship now? Who can I pick? Who shall pick on first? Who wants to be nice and who wants to be bad?
I'll be bad. Let's be honest. Okay, I'll do it. I'll do
bad one first. Melissa, go on.
I think honestly, we're kind of the same.
I'd agree with that.
We have lives that come together that we agree on in certain situations. But at the same time, we're still the same. The only thing that we can't do is, knock a few rounds, throw some hands, because we're all too old for that. I will probably break a hip. But I think
How low are your punches?
I don't think anything has changed per se. Josh has experienced things that have impacted his life. Ashley has experienced things that have impacted her life. I've experienced things, and they all just kind of roll along right next to each other. I live in a different state. Josh lives in a different state. Ashley lives in a different state. So I think it didn't tear us apart, but I don't also think it brought us.
We're not like best
close
friends,
together.
Yeah, huggy wuggy.
Yeah,
well, that's a good thing. I mean, the fact that you go through this, and you've stayed true to who you are is a massive. It's a massive positive. It's not.
Yeah, we've all grown.
It means that that aspect that
we've all
that
grown.
loss hasn't defined you. It's you yourselves. You know where everybody is. You know where each other is.
Yeah, it's a part of you. It's a part of each of us. But because we processed the whole situation differently, the outcome is different for each of us. I think probably it may have encouraged us to do things that are more along our goals, our aspirations, rather than, holding back. Because you never know. You never know when, the man upstairs, right, is going to say, oh, your time's up. So I think we've all kind of gone down our route of what makes us happy. And I mean, like I said, we're not the best of friends, but we're siblings. I mean, what are we supposed to do? Like,
we're very siblings, but we can still, we have a group chat where, we'll put in, Josh might send us something funny, or Melissa might say like, hey, I got this for my kid, or, oh, hey, look what I found, or I'll, put in stuff. So, I think we communicate a little more now than what we used to, which I greatly appreciate. But I mean, it's, like Melissa said, we're still we're living our own lives, but I feel that we are a little more connected. Josh keeps us updated on what's going on with his life. Melissa lets us know. So it's definitely like one of those, I'm grateful that, technology, that we can have a group chat so I can, stay updated with everybody. Like, unfortunately, our cousin had passed away a couple weeks ago, and Melissa was able to go to that memorial service. But it was nice for Melissa to keep us updated. So sounds bad, but like, of course, losing my mom was the worst thing in my life, but yet also it kind of brought our family closer together, because now I probably talk to my dad a little more now. I talk to my siblings more. It makes me appreciate my family more. Because, and also I know I can go to them and say, here's what I'm feeling. Like, or they understand why on September 11th, why people are like, why are you so weird about this day? And I'm like, it's not just, that's a bad day for the world, United States, but it's everyone seems to understand on her birthday, which is next Saturday. No, it's Saturday.
Yeah.
And on September 11th, and even January, why I'm so weird, because those days just bring up memories and feelings that I'm like, oh God. So, I mean, out of this whole situation, I'm grateful that I'm still very connected to my siblings.
Cool. Josh, we've had one bad, one good.
Think about your answer. Think about your answer.
I feel like Josh will be Switzerland. He'll be neutral.
Yeah, Josh is like, I know them.
I'm the best.
I will neither confirm nor deny or answer that
Melissa's
question.
like, come to the dock.
I just laughed when Ashley said you're funny. I was like, what? Obviously a different Josh.
Funny.
Yeah, there's the Melissa comment right there.
We both said it. We both said it. There's the thing. Is we both said it.
Man, they own you.
Gotta be quicker than that. Gotta be quicker than that. Gotta be quicker than that.
So
Internet lag. Internet lag.
So to answer the question, which I'm trying to get to, it's just from my perspective, it's been kind of what Melissa said, where it hasn't gotten better, but it hasn't gotten worse. We just kind of do our own thing. I know we fluctuate as far as how much we talk to each other. I think in the last, we'll say 3 months, just this interview is the most I've probably talked to my sisters as a collective group. And it's nothing bad. It's nothing against them. It's just we are all busy. I mean, Ashley has her little one who's, keeping most of her time.
11 months today.
Melissa,
congratulations.
Melissa's got, her kids, her job, not to say Ashley doesn't have a job, because she does, and then there's everything I'm doing, work, the paying job, family, and then obviously everything I'm doing with Comic Crusaders, Undercover Capes, and then the Dr. Pepper, the Pepper Pack podcast. I'm just so busy that it keeps me grounded. And I think it's safe to say for the three of us, that's what we do. We stay busy so we don't go insane.
Okay.
You give me time to stop and think sometimes on that, and I go down a slippery slope.
Yep, I do too.
Right. Okay. Guys, thanks very much for taking the time out. Today is the VirtualCon II from Comic Crusaders. It's also the 24th of October, which is a massive, massive day. Ashley mentioned it. It is Lisa Einfalt's birthday. All right. You want to know what leukemia, lymphoma does to people? Just check out this really honest conversation, this really honest interview from 3 people who are doing their mother proud in continuing to live their lives by her ideals. All I've got to say, man, to everyone that's watching and listening, get involved. Get involved in the charity. The links are on the site. Donate. Spend some time. All right? Any day it could be your mum, it could be your dad, it could be your sibling that suffers this horrendous disease. Without these honest conversations, we're not going to get any better at dealing with it. So, whilst I am truly honoured to have been part of this conversation, I applaud Josh, Ashley, and Melissa for taking the time out of their busy schedules to tell the world what their mum and what this disease has done for their family. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.